Please sit down, dear guests. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last session of today, and after this session we will have some presentations. And the topic of last panel will be how to use data insights to optimize a club's scout and recruitment processes. This is a forum, scouting forum. And our guests today, I would like to call them on the stage one by one. Former sports director of Rakov Czestochowa, with your applause, Mr. Pawel Tomczyk. Director of football at NK Maribor from Slovenia, Mr. Marko SULER. Welcome. And the moderator of this forum will be Mr. Sebastiaan, who is a South and Eastern Europe manager at SCISPORTS. Welcome and good luck.
Good afternoon all. Thank you Winterleague for having us here, talking about football and the use of data in particular in the scouting process. That's a topic we're going to discuss today with my dear guests from Slovenia and Poland. Marko, to start with you as an ex-player, top player, and a current sports director of Maribor. How do you fit in your role? Can you tell us something about that?
Hello everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Well, the difference is enormous. To be a player is, as I can see it now, is the most easy job. You do your part in trainings and in games and your day is basically finished. As a sport director, it's a 24-hour job, so it's a big difference in a job, in a way of thinking, and also in the responsibility. So completely new stuff where all this knowledge that we're also using now is in helpful. As a player, you just have to be focused on training and games, and then basically your job is done. So.
Yeah. Pawel, you're recently appointed in the sports management direction of Legia Warsaw. Also, you worked before as a sports director. How do you look at, let's say, this new stage?
Good afternoon. Thank you for invitation. You know, it's another adventure for me. Now in Legia, I used to work in Rakov and also use data in scouting process. I think that's why I am part of this conversation today. I wish that we will use data also in Legia. We are preparing a new scouting plan for the club. So we would like to start from data as a first filter, not to make the final decisions, but to exclude players that are not fitted well for the positions that we are looking for. I think that it may help us to bring better players to the team that will suit well to the philosophy, to the style of playing our team.
Okay. As you can see on the picture, the football industry is developing. In the past, we had, of course, the live scouting that still exists. Later on, started coming up the video scouting, Instat, Y-Scout. I think it's used by most clubs. And in the past recent years, the usage of data is playing a more important role. Marko, if I ask you, you have to deal with a lot of stakeholders. that is internal at the club, but also fans, agents, etc. If you look at the recent developments, also the use of data, does it make your work easier, or can you use it in your own advantage? And can you give an example of that?
Well, first of all, the football is changing a lot. So what was 5 years ago something what we use now was unimaginable. So you have to basically tell people to see, otherwise was unable to follow, because now everything you have, basically you cannot hide anymore anything. So all the details about physics, about also other tactical stuff, it's already is available on your hand. So you have to also change the way the clubs work, and especially now in these COVID times, where like say a year ago we were basically closed, so the live scouting was unavailable. Yeah. And in times like that, the tools that we have, like with SCISPORTS, it's definitely a big addiction, not addiction, but a tool that's added to the profile, so you can find what you need. And there's a lot of data, and it's realistic data, which is important. So you can make a picture about the player you're looking for, and it can give you an extra details to make a decision, which player and how to take it. And usually you cannot exclude the mistake, but with all these tools, it's definitely easier to minimize the risk of your decision. So, all this from InstaScout and all this stuff, it's a big add-on to the decision of taking or releasing the players.
But is it also important to convince, let's say, because you're the final decision maker, but you have to deal with your coach, with scouts, with your chief scout. Is it difficult to convince them also that in these times data can help the club, let's say, to make better decisions? And how do you do that?
I wouldn't say it's difficult to convince, because they have to use it. Otherwise, it's impossible to get the right picture about someone, because there's so many informations available now. So why not use it? It's always make easier decision by more information that you get. The less you have, the more unrealistic maybe that picture is. So we in the club, we use all the tools we can, because we are also in putting club on new foundations, and our scouting system is basically we're rebuilding it and putting it on new. So it's not difficult, but it's very, very useful, I would say.
All right. And do you, we are now in the transfer window currently. I think in Slovenia and Poland the window is a little bit longer than in some Western European countries. You get a lot of tips, I assume, from agents, maybe daily, maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe more. How do you validate those tips? Do you use data to validate, or do you use any other tools? Do you watch all players on video directly?
To see all, it's basically impossible, because it's at this moment this market really occupied with a lot of players, and it's the situation at the moment in the football is a little bit different that we know from before. So in these cases, the tools like SCISPORTS definitely make your, I would say, filter the players which are more suited or more close to what you're looking for, and then you can make like decisions easier what to watch, because to see all of it, it's at least I'm here in this position 1 year, it's basically impossible. It's unfortunately too many, and at the end you have to make a decision. So you use as much data that you have, and then to see those players that you put in like final draw, which is what you're looking for.
Yeah. Pawel, at Legia, you're using also data in the total scouting process. If we look at the picture you can see here, This is a picture of, that's what we say, a modern day scouting process. Do you agree, if you look at this picture, that data is a very important part of the total scouting process nowadays? And do you think also that data eventually can replace even live scouting or video scouting?
Oh, I think that this scouting process, which is there, is more similar to that what we want to do in Legia, because we are changing it, and this is also my philosophy of scouting. So I think that data are very important, as I said before, as a first filter, but not only. Video scouting then is also very important, and live scouting, and I think that data are not going to replace it, but data helps to watch proper profiles, proper players, and also, for example, in the final decisions, also data are very important. For example, if you have two statistically similar players for their whole career or last season, you can check the statistics for last, for example, 3 seasons, and check which of the players is in upward trend or downward trend. If it is a player that is improving in last seasons, you've got more probability that he will develop in your club and you'll be able to sell him in future. So for me, data are very important, and if you are using them properly, they can help you on a various stage of scouting.
Thank you. Also, Marko, data is normally giving like objective information. What your eyes see is mainly subjective. It can happen that you have a certain opinion about the player after you've watched him on several matches, you've watched him on video, but that the data is telling you something totally different than your first opinion. How would you deal with that?
Luckily, I didn't came across that kind of thing. That generally, what the data tells me is more or less what you see also live. So, for me, that's very relevant. That the information that you get from platforms like this, that they are realistic, of course, but it can happen. In the end, nobody can be 100% sure. This is why sport is interesting, and there are surprises. But as I said, you try with all these tools and data that you get. The only thing what you can do is to minimize the risk as much as you can.
Yeah.
You cannot be always 100% sure, but so far I didn't came across example that my life impression or scouting of somebody would be completely different than what the data told me. So basically, there are exceptions where these numbers or maybe are different, but never they go completely against each other.
So you said it can be a confirmation for what you have already seen, or in case it's telling you something else, it could be, it could give you some doubts. That makes you to check it double. In these times, budgets are under pressure, COVID, no fans in the stadiums, etc. So do you think that data in that way, the right use of data, of course, can, yeah, as you said, save money and save a lot of time, of course?
That's the point, I think. It's, we all live, we know that clubs, this is, at the end, it's a business. So our job is to find the right player for as low money as he can, get the most out of it, and of course to sell it for as much as you can. And what my colleague here said is completely true. The data tries to reduce the risk, you never know, and now you have all the tools that you can see also few seasons back, what is happening with the player, and to see everything on which stage of his career is it. And with right data, you can definitely minimize this kind of risk, but unfortunately, you cannot never be 100% sure.
Pawel, we see a recent trend in football, like Brentford in England, Midtjylland in Denmark already for a longer time, and more clubs are now bought by investors that are more relying on data. Do you think this is the future?
Yeah, for sure. I think that data are very important not only in football, but football is also maybe different business. That's why we love it, because you can be sure anything 100%, but you can minimize risk. That's very important. And also, in my opinion, data can be used to make profiles of the players, because sometimes on the pitch you can see a lot of quality players, but they don't match to the team and to the part of the pitch where they are playing. So if you prepare properly the statistics to look for specific skills for the player on a specific position, you've got more probability that your team will play in the style, in the way you want and the coach wants. So you can check and look for specific players with skills that are needed on specific position.
Yeah. Also a question, traditionally clubs have live scouts in certain regions. If you would have a certain budget and you have to choose nowadays between hiring an extra live scout or using any data platform, what would you prefer? What would you consider?
I would try to use both if I can, because live scouting for sure it's important, and you cannot just replace it. It will always be a part of sport, I think. So just using the data, it won't happen, I think. But if you use both in correct way, then I think this is how I imagine where the sport will go and where at this moment Maribor will go.
And do you think also that agents play a role? Let's say you just mentioned if you prepare properly, do you think that also agents have a role in this total process? Because do you expect from them also to use, let's say, certain filters of data instead of like what you see sometimes or still happen a lot, just dropping player names on your desk and hopefully one of the 10 or 20 clubs where they offer a player will take him? Is that something what you expect from agents?
Yes, for sure. Marko knows that, and I also, that we receive a lot of players that don't suit the profiles that we need. I usually send informations about describe the profiles that I need. But I receive a lot of players outstanding for that, and this is a lose of time, you know. But you have to check everybody when they are sending to you, because you may find someone in this mess, because it's mess at the moment, you know.
You don't want to miss that one player.
Yeah. But if the agents will be more prepared and offer the players to the clubs that are really looking this kind of profiles, they will also maximize that the player will be doing well in that club. Sometimes they just want to put the player in the club, no matter who the club who is looking for, and then we've got troubles, because if this player is not checked properly, and maybe he has quality, but he doesn't fit the way the team is playing. He's staying there for one round or one season, and he have to look for another club. I think this is very, very important.
Yes, totally agree. We are now in the current, let's say, difficult winter transfer window. Are you already also working now for the summer window, or is that starting after this window is finishing? And can you tell our listeners how does the process of preparing for a certain window look like, and what kind of tools, for example, you use?
Well, in our club, the main transfer window is in winter. In summer, it's short period, shorter than in winter. In winter, we have a longer break, so in summer we also have European qualifications and competitions. So basically in Maribor, the team in summer must be ready. There are only exceptions that can happen. If you sell somebody, then you have to replace him, but more or less the bigger transfer are made in winter. So the most of the job, we do it now, but we're also preparing. So we generally almost closed this window, more or less. There can happen exceptions. But you prepare also, of course. You look for 6 months at least, or even more ahead, because our goal is to be good on long terms. Competition is whole year long, and important is that in the end you're there where you want to be, and for that kind of things you cannot prepare only 1 month or few ahead. You have to think also a little bit further. But generally you have to be ready, prepared, mobile, flexible, because you never know what happened. So yeah, it's the work is short term and long term.
Yes. Maybe this situation at Maribor that you said the winter transfer window is more important than the summer transfer window. By many clubs it's the opposite way, as I know. Is that how does it goes at Legia?
Well, at the moment it is a difficult situation because of our last round, which wasn't good, and we've got a lot of changes in the club, also changing scouting process. So at the moment we are focused on strengthen team in winter transfer window, but we would like in future to have prepared transfer for another window during the window, for example, for summer in winter, but we have to also not to forget about it, that during every window there are some opportunities, and you have to leave some slots, maybe 1, maybe 2, for the opportunity that the player you are looking for and he suits very well maybe possible to sign. So it is the thing that you should have also in your mind. But I wish that next windows will be prepared in some time before.
Yes. Can we say or conclude that clubs that in this small transfer window, short transfer window, maybe signing more than 3, 4, 5 players, can you say that are clubs that are probably not well organized, not prepared, that they are maybe missing, in Dutch we say missing the boat, regarding be aware of what is on the market, maybe dealing only with some specific agents. I mean, if you look at Maribor, as you just explained it, you already are prepared. You don't need to sign 8 new players because you know what's in the squad, what you need, and if you listen carefully to you, data also help you to be updated constantly. You recently had a new signing, center back from Sweden, from which we hopefully can see the profile well. His name is Max Watson. Marko, just an interesting question. Can you take us a little bit in the process from the beginning of finding this player until finally signing him, and how did it went?
Yeah, well, the tool like SCISPORTS, it helps us a lot to get the relevant information, especially the profile of the player that we needed. And the information that we get here, and if you combine it then later with the live video, unfortunately we were not able to see him live because in Sweden competition ended already in November. In November we basically finalized our sell of the defender to MLS. So we have to find a new player, and because in Sweden was competition over, so we couldn't see Mark Watson live. So we have to find as many information from the platform and also from like Sky Sports, Scout, Insta Scout and stuff like that, from the information from the country, and in the end, the information that we get was so good, impressive, that in the end decision was to bring Watson to our club, and so far I believe we got the right player, but in the end, of course, the time will tell how he managed to do in our team, but the information that we get from this platform, it really helped us to find the player that we were looking for, and the data was impressive, the live scout was impressive, and in the end also the negotiations were quite easy at that point. So what we saw we get.
So the data profile, let's say, was helping you in making the final decision to go for this player.
Exactly, because basically you have to react really quick, so you don't have a lot of time. So as I said, the coaches want to have their players as soon as possible in the team. They like as less changes as possible in the team, so to be quick and to be sure is the factor that's important. So with all this data, I think we do that basically in 2 weeks.
So, and also without, let's say, this data, in this case SciSports, but can be other sources as well, could you say that you would never have signed this player?
It will be definitely more difficult to find him.
To find him at least.
Exactly. At least to find the profile, because honestly the market in Sweden is not that covered. In our club, before we were more focused on our countries around us, which we could cover easily with the scouts and stuff. So basically we find now, also the history tells us it's the first Swedish player in NK Maribor. So basically we're reading history, and I really hope he does well, because it's something new, but I think it's the right way.
So you can say that you're setting a trend maybe for players from countries normally not playing in Slovenia, but that market are now open due to use of data. Is that also at Legia? Poland, I think it's a maybe still a sleeping giant, can we say, if you look at the strength of the league, the huge amount of people living in Poland, the big fan base that the clubs have. Do you think that the coming years the Polish football will change positively?
Yes, I think it will change. It is changing a lot, because the facilities are really good, the stadiums are well, the intensity is very high, the intensity is on the level of Premier League, but maybe the organization of the teams is not so good, so maybe these high runs that we make are not made in the best ways. So physically we are prepared. We need better organization on the pitch for sure, and better technical quality. We are working on it with kids in academies. They are also developing, and using of data also is more popular a lot of teams are using data or starting to do it. So I think that we will develop in a good way in the future, and the organization on the pitch will be also the way to compete better in Europe, because of that I think we lose games in Europe.
Yeah, because I want to ask you that, as I'm myself from the Netherlands, more Western European orientated. You're from Slovenia, you're from Poland. Do you see that in the upcoming years the gap maybe between the traditional Western European high-class countries and, let's say, upcoming leagues like Hungary, Czech, Balkan League, Slovenia, Poland will be smaller based on innovations and new techniques?
Well, we already see now that already this gap is a little bit slowing, it's minimizing. It's not that big as it was before. Before you didn't have many tools, and especially for the clubs, like Maribor in this case, financially you cannot compete with these teams because you have completely different budget than the teams that you want to compete in Europe. But on the pitch, you can see you can compete. In that way, you have to compensate with the passion, with everything that you have, and then with all these tools that before were unavailable. Now generally everything is available for all the clubs. So this gap, I think, is not that big as it was before. You can see it also now that there are so many teams close to playing in the highest level of European competition. So, which is for the clubs like Maribor is welcome, of course. For the bigger clubs, maybe not so much, but I think it's interesting. That's why the sport is interesting, because you can have surprises.
Yeah, and do you also think that in the coming future, because we just spoke about data, physical data, performance data, video scouting, live scouting, but psychological data, is that something that you are open for to use, or do you think that your eyes are still the best?
That I think it would be difficult to find the player that is as a character right to your team, to put that in the numbers. I would like to see somebody try, but so far I think that you can see personally from the conversation or from the body language of the player, it's more difficult to see in the numbers, I think. So that's why I think also live scouting will be still a big part of how to decide for the players.
So let's say live scouting, maybe at the end of the total scouting process, will always play the most important part.
I think so, yes.
All right. And do you use also, or do you expect, or would you like to use data, because we have a lot of data regarding players, but is there any data available for coaches, for example? Would you be interested in having those kind of data?
Our coach already uses the platform, so he also uses this kind of data. Of course, they use more visual part where they analyze the team and the tactic and the stuff like that, where on my position where you have to look for the players, this data is maybe more usable than to them, but they use it. So I think in every part of football where you are, all the data is welcome, but of course it has to be selected. Otherwise, if it's too much data, you can also lose your focus or lose yourself in it. So that's why the right amount of everything is, I think, the right combination.
Yeah, and that's what I want to ask. Do you see, let's say, some threats, some dangers in using data? What could be a disadvantage or a no against data?
As Marko said, in the end is live scouting. So you have to prove the data, watching players live. But I see also another utility to check the profile of the coaches that you need. If you've got philosophy, you can check by data if the coach that you want to hire is a proper for the style of the club that will be continued, the work that was made by the coach before, and if the coach suits to your philosophy and the players that you have. So using of data is very important on every part of life and also in football, but using it properly is the most important.
Yes. And for you personal, is let's say the club philosophy is always leading. If you look at clubs that are club driven by the club philosophy, some clubs are more agent driven depending on certain agents, or manager driven depending on the current coach. What is for you, let's say, the ideal situation?
I think we have a mixture of both. Of course, you have to rely on people you trust, because in this kind of business, the trust is important, and reliable information that you get from the agents or from the club are important. But in the end, is a mixture. The people that are close to the club and also the agents that know the club, they know exactly what kind of mentality of the club is and what is the idea of the club. You have different kind of clubs that some stream to more longer term, some stream to the other team, some are playing for the champions, the others are playing for staying in the league. It's a big change and difference in the mentality, and here you have to rely on first of the people you have and also the information that you use, and especially in the club as Maribor, where you have to compete against much bigger budgets. You have to be really innovative and open and fluent to grab the chance, and so you can compete against the teams that are basically with much higher budgets than you are. So mixture of everything to find, but definitely it's more difficult to find a player that is characteristically suitable for your team than the player that is just physically and as a player qualities that fits to your games. And this was quite a challenge for us in the last year.
I think that counts also for Legia as a #1 club in Poland. There's always an extra pressure compared to other clubs. You worked before for Raków. They came from, I think, 3rd league now to the Polish Ekstraklasa, playing in the top. How do you experience the difference between working now at Legia, traditional top team, and before Raków?
Oh, it's hard to say at the moment because I am in Legia only a few months, not even 2. So I think that I could tell it maybe in the future, but the possibilities in Legia are bigger, and maybe it's easier to convince the player to come to the club, but also their expectations are higher. But I think that the way I was working in Raków using data, maybe I will make some changes, but I will use it to do it also in Legia. So I think that the most important thing for me always is to have a clear view about the profiles that I am looking for. This is the most important. And no matter in which club you are, you have to always put the proper players that you need in your team. This is the most important thing for me.
So you say, let's say, the club philosophy based on certain profiles is more important, is always leading above, let's say, the emotions of maybe winning or losing.
Yes, as I said before, not only quality is important, but the matching, and data help with it to make it to make the best solution.
Yes. I want to thank you for your time, for the interesting stories you have shared with us. Marko, thank you very much. Pawel, you too. Good luck in the second part of the season. Hopefully still competing for the championship, and Legia fighting to finish the season properly and building already, I think, for the next season. So a big challenge to do. But once again, thank you. Thank you to the listeners, also the people online, and especially also the Winter League for having us here. And goodbye.
Thank you.
All right.